Welcome back to day 13 of the men's 2020 Australian Open. Tomorrow is the big one, the final. You got Novak Djokovic looking for his 8th Australian Open title and 17th Grand Slam, while Dominic Thiem is looking for his maiden Grand Slam title. Has reached the French Open final twice and run into Rafael Nadal on both occasions. You almost have to feel sorry for Thiem that he's got the impossible task. He's obviously faced the two best players in the world over the past few years in both of his finals, but also with the favourite venues. Nadal's almost unbeatable on clay, obviously won 11 French Opens, and now he faces Djokovic at the Australian Open, which he's so dominant at, winning 7 titles. So they do say you've got to beat the best to be the best. So Dominic Thiem, he's been playing very well. He's got form over Djokovic. He has beaten him on a couple of occasions. He's beaten him at French Open over 5 sets, which will give him extra confidence. And he beat the man who was the man to beat almost. Obviously Djokovic did come to this tournament as favourite, but Nadal was the world number one. He won the US Open, and people predict him to win this Grand Slam too and back up that US Open win ahead of the French Open. A quick look at Dominic Thiem, his route to the final and his form over the past couple of weeks. Obviously Thiem didn't have the strongest form on hard courts over the early years of his career, but I was reading an analysis piece on Thiem's hard court changes in the last year or two, and his form's really improved. Obviously done well at the ATP Tour finals, and he's just been more aggressive on hard court. He's starting to move so much better on them for me. He's very quick, very efficient, and he is improving all the time on these sort of courts and surfaces. His form this week, he didn't have the best start to the week, to be honest. He lost 2 sets against Alex Bolt in the early rounds. Obviously the Aussie, it was probably the biggest match of his life, a Grand Slam in his home country. Definitely raised his performance, but Thiem did make a lot of unforced errors. And when I watched him in that match, I did say after it that to reach the latter stage of the tournament, you'd have to cut them errors out and start making the backhands and forehands that he was looking for rather than missing them. Thankfully for him, he has done that, and he's got better and better throughout the tournament. Against Monfils, Monfils never really posed a huge threat in that game, largely down to his unforced errors and down to the fact he was nursing a hand injury, so his serve was way down on its not regular speed, which didn't really allow him to hold serve comfortably in any stage of the match. Thiem cruised to that one, but he was relentless that day. Thiem, as he has been from then on. His backhand's been brilliant, but for me it's Thiem's forehand that's gonna decide his fate tomorrow. Really, it's hot and cold. When it's hot, it's unstoppable. When it's cold, it misses by some way, and there might be some Djokovic targets tomorrow. You certainly don't want to play on Thiem's forehand, I don't think. He showed in the quarter-final against Rafa that his backhand can out-hit Nadal's forehand. It's one of the biggest shots in the game, and you don't really want to be targeting that backhand. If there's any vulnerabilities to Thiem's game, it's certainly his forehand, but even that, on its day, it has been throughout the tournament, it's still a huge weapon of his. So yeah, he made it to the semi-final against Alexander Zverev. Zverev had a fantastic tournament, hadn't really dropped his set. I think it was just the one set against Wawrinka, wasn't it, until that semi-final when he faced Dominic Thiem. Zverev took control of that match early, finding depth and finding the back of the lines and keeping Thiem on the run, not allowing him to settle. And it took Thiem quite a lot, quite a long stage of that match until he really did start to find his form. But it was a case of more of the same. When Thiem finds his form, finds his stride, starts moving into the court, dictating the rallies and being aggressive, attacking the net, serving well, then he is almost unstoppable at times. And Zverev found it very difficult to keep Thiem off him in them last few sets, which secured a 4-set win for Thiem to move into his first ever Australian Open final up against Novak Djokovic. He's had a fantastic tournament. You've got to see, he lost the opening set of the tournament, which is quite remarkable, against, I think it was Leonard Struff, and he turned around to win that match in 4 sets. And after that match, a lot of people, pundits, predicted, questioned whether Djokovic was fatigued after his exploit at the ATP Cup. He obviously had an outstanding start of the year. He beat Rafa, obviously, and He beat Rafa's Spain in the final of that ATP Cup to lift it with Serbia. But he did play a lot of tennis. He obviously played singles and doubles, and at 32 you do question, is that the best preparation before a Grand Slam? But I think them rumours are quashed now. You know, he's cruised through the final, he's looked very imperious, he's looked at his best, and he's made it to the final in flying colours. So you can't say that. If anything, I think the ATP Cup is made Djokovic a better player. He's come to this tournament sharper with confidence, and he does look at the very top of his game. In the quarter-final stages, he faced the big Serbian Milos Raonic. That was a match that really impressed me with Djokovic. He looked very focused throughout. He got into a lot of the Raonic service game, which is very difficult. You know, Raonic hadn't dropped a set, he hadn't dropped serve until that quarter-final against Djokovic, and as we know, Djokovic, he is the best returner of all time. He read that Raonic serve very well, but he was patient in rallies. You know, he didn't look for he didn't try and exploit the short ball. He didn't try and keep the points short. Djokovic, he wanted to stretch them out. He wanted to keep Raonic on the run, and I think Djokovic worked him out very well from an early stage. And it was always a case of one break was enough to win the set, which was the case. Positive signs for Djokovic were that he produced his best tennis at the biggest stages. You know, the back in the sets, he really turned it on, and he was producing levels that you know, very few players in the world can live with, which is what he's shown over the last few years, which is why he's he becomes the world number one if he wins tomorrow. Jumps ahead of Rafa again, and he moves on to that semi-final against to set up the 50th meeting with Roger Federer. It wasn't the classic that it could have been, largely down to Federer's spent a lot of time out on court. He didn't come in that match playing at all well. He's had very poor form, and you could argue that he should have been out of the tournament in a lot earlier stage. He was nursed an injury, a groin injury, which I think did throw Djokovic off his game, definitely physically and mentally. Federer in that first set came out firing forehands and backhands from all over the court, hitting winners for four and serving well. And Djokovic surprisingly got through off by that. He didn't seem mentally switched on. He didn't seem in game mode, and he sort of was complaining to his team as if to say, how is he producing this if he's meant to be injured? But as I said in my review of that match, that you've just got to focus on the match. You know, if Federer's turned up, he's turned up because he thinks he can win, and you've got to beat that person that's in front of you. You know, you've got to beat whatever turns up on the day, whether that's half fit Federer or fully fit Federer. You've got to put him away, and in the end he did. He played terrible, Djokovic, I think, in that opening parts of that first set, but it's what Djokovic has become to be over the last few years. He went from one extreme to another. You know, he managed to force a first set tie break from 5-2 down or 5-3 down. Seems ages ago now. But after playing horrendous, terrible tennis for, you know, the opening parts that set, completely unlike Djokovic, mistiming the ball, not rallying at all well, dumping balls in the net, not serving these first serves in that first set tie break. It's the best tennis that we've seen all week from any player. Just quite incredible the level that he reached in that first set tie break. You know, not one unforced error. All first serves. You know, aces, winners, returning Federer's serve with authority, being aggressive, and it was just at a level that even a rampant Federer couldn't get close to. You know, it was 7-1 that tie break, and from that point on, it was always a long way back for Federer. And Djokovic took advantage. He did start to switch on. He gained his confidence. He got into his game mode, his robot mode, and closed it out. You know, he wasn't at his imperious best by any means. Djokovic, he missed a lot of breakpoint opportunities with poor returns, but I don't think Federer ever believed in himself after that first set loss. You know, it was a long set, and we knew Djokovic was the favourite over the distance, so it was Djokovic's day, and he moved on to the final to face Dominic Thiem. And looking ahead now to this final eventually, that went on for longer than expected, but tactically it gets to a point when you reach the final where there's not a lot to analyse really. You know, both players have got here on merit. They've got here because they're executing the plan A's, and you know, Dominic Thiem, if he has a day like he had against Rafael Nadal where he barely misses, he hits through the ball, He's got the capabilities, team, of hitting through any opponent. He hits his ground strokes that positively, that cleanly, with that much power and speed and precision that is even Djokovic. Djokovic is the best defensive player in the world, if not ever. Even Djokovic, I think, would have struggled the other day if Thiem hit the way he did. You know, Rafa was in the form of his life. He played a very, very good match, very solid match, Rafa, and even he couldn't live with Thiem in them tie breaks. Can Thiem produce that level of performance again? He didn't in the semi-final. Neither did Zverev. That semi-final was slightly disappointing in my opinion. I don't think Thiem looked at his best at all. I don't know whether he was slightly fatigued. There was rumours that he was struggling with a stomach injury, but he did get over the line. You know, he played well in patches, but that's not good enough against Djokovic. You've got to play well consistently, and you know, keep Djokovic honest. You can't give Djokovic any lead or even take the sets close. You know, if the sets were to go at the distance, I think if Djokovic's recent form in tie breaks and winning Grand Slam titles, he's got that experience, and I think you would have to favour Djokovic. In terms of Djokovic, what does he have to do? His serve's been outstanding this tournament up until that Federer match. You know, he was serving over 70%. He's hitting a lot of aces, and he's constructing points incredibly well off that first serve, holding serve very easily. When he does that, it puts enormous pressure on his opponent. Obviously, we know how good his return game is, how solid he is in rallies. It does present a huge problem for opponents if Djokovic serves as he does. Tactically, I did think in the past when Djokovic has been beaten off Thiem at the French Open that he's played their matches slightly negatively. I do think the surface contributes to that, but Djokovic has always looked to be on the defensive against Thiem at the French Open. I don't know whether it's because the courts play slower, which perhaps doesn't suit Djokovic. I mean, clay is a very, very tough surface to play on. Thiem's incredible at it. He suits the surface, and I'm sure he'll go on to win a French Open title when Rafa eventually retires. He's obviously 7 years younger than Rafa, so he will get his time. But Djokovic tomorrow, I think, on a hard court that suits. You know, he's got 7 titles at Melbourne. He loves these conditions. He loves playing in Australia. I think he wants to go out there and prove he's champion. You know, he's got that extra incentive now of becoming world number 1, closing the gap to Federer to 3 on the Grand Slam all-time list. I expect to see Djokovic at the very top of his game tomorrow, and he'll go out and attack Thiem. You know, he won't go out there and be passive and, you know, hoping Thiem makes errors and gives him the match. Djokovic wants to go out and win it himself, go out and put the performance of a lifetime on, put a real show on, and dominate Thiem. And I feel that's what he's got to do. As I said about Zverev the other day, I think it was too risky for Zverev to look for errors and hope that Thiem has an off day. He almost did have an off day, Thiem, I felt, but not. I just didn't think Zverev took advantage enough. You know, at times I thought Zverev could have been more aggressive rather than waiting for Thiem errors, and that cost him on the day, I felt. Djokovic is a hell of a lot better in rallies than Zverev is. You know, he can go toe to toe with Djokovic. You know how good his double-handed backhand is. His forehands look very good this tournament, and Djokovic could quite easily dominate Thiem, bully him from the back of the court. Djokovic has got huge clean ground strokes too. I don't think Thiem is defensively as solid as Djokovic, particularly on the backhand side. You know, Thiem's very good at attacking with his backhand. Defensively, I'm not so sure. He seems to go very short sometimes and allow his opponent into the net with easy putaways. In terms of prediction, I'm gonna tip Djokovic. Why? Because I just think he's the best player in the world. You know, I would never tip against Djokovic. Only time I would maybe move against him is against Rafa and Clay. Other than that, I would never bet against Djokovic. I just think if he turns up at 90-100%, I don't think any opponent can live with him. He's got the form in Australia, seven Australian Open titles, looking for an 8th. He's desperate to become the most successful player ever, and he would become even closer to doing it if he wins tomorrow. He's got the extra incentive of becoming world number 1, and you know, he likes to start off the year with an Australian Open win. You know, it sets him up perfectly for the year, and I think he'll be going to this match with huge confidence. He'll probably expecting to play Rafa or Medvedev in the final. Instead, he's up against a Dominic Thiem. I'm not saying the Thiem's an easy match by any means. You know, he's an incredible player, but he hasn't had the best of forms on the hard courts. I know he has progressed in the last few years, in the last couple of years, particularly over the last 18 months, Thiem has improved on these sort of courts, but to turn up and beat Djokovic in Australia over 5 sets, I'm not so sure he's got the game to do that. I do think Thiem will win a set, but a set only for me. I think if Thiem serves well and returns well on the day, if Djokovic has a poor spell for 5 or 10 minutes, sorry, and Thiem capitalises, I think he will win a set. But I think Djokovic wins this one in 4. My voice is gone, so I'll be back tomorrow to review this match. Please enjoy, like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.